There has been a lot of talks about star hunting from the Sixers' perspective this summer, but there's one guy who we have not harped on enough on this channel, that being LeBron James, and why the Sixers may be uniquely positioned to make a leverage play and put themselves at an advantage that other teams can't quite do. Now, where this directly ties in is Bronny James himself. And the reason that I do bring this up is there has been a bit of consistent whispering behind the scenes that the Sixers are linked to 76ers, or the Sixers are linked to Bronny James in a way that very few teams are. That we know the situation. We know Bronny James, all signs pointing to him remaining in the draft at this point in time. I will dive my toes into a little bit of that discussion, what I think on that. But the bottom line is the bigger play here for the Sixers would be to bring LeBron James to the Sixers organization and make him the third star alongside Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. Now, to have the conversation as a whole, we know the talks from LeBron specifically about his desire to play with his son. That to pull up the exact quotes here, he said back a couple months ago, quote, "I need to be on the floor with my boy. I got to be on the floor with Bronny," James said earlier this year via ESPN, either in the same uniform or a matchup against him. "But I sure would love to do the Ken Griffey Sr. and Jr. thing. That would be ideal for sure." I asked him what his aspirations, and he says he wants to play in the NBA, James added. So if he wants to do it, he's got to put in the work. I'm here already, so I'm just waiting on him. Now, what's particularly interesting when it comes to this conversation is LeBron James' contractual situation, that he currently has a player option for next season, a $51 million player option, and I think the question that needs to be answered is what is the priority for LeBron James at this point in time. I personally do believe the window has closed for a championship out in Los Angeles. And as much as they are in the driver's seat and everything from the Lakers' perspective seems dead set on bringing LeBron James back, this is a two-part decision. And if there is more appeal in LeBron James' head to play with his son, then the Sixers should be the team to strike it. Now, to talk about Bronny specifically here, I first want to say I'm a little bit frustrated by the conversation points, the way that things have gone. To call a spade here, Bronny James is not ready for the NBA leap at this current moment. To pull up his stats on the season, 4.8 points per game, 2.8 rebounds, 2.1 assists, shot just 36.6% from the field overall, 26.7% from beyond the three-point line. On top of that he measured in at just 6'1" today at the combine. There's a lot of red flags here. Now, I think that's a little unfair to just paint Bronny in that light, that we know he had the heart situation leading into the season, did not get a full preseason to participate, and on this USC team, he was 6th in minutes in a team that underperformed as a whole. And to compare him directly to his teammate, Isaiah Collier is a guy on that team that I do expect to hear his name called in the lottery. And the night and day difference between Bronny James and Isaiah Collier is certainly there. But when it comes to Bronny, I'm not saying that the door is closed on him becoming a polished NBA player. That defensively, he's pretty much there already. There are some offensive concerns, and for the people that want to be overly optimistic, the difference being that, sure, LeBron was not completely offensively developed when he made his NBA leap, but he also wasn't 6'1". That LeBron was the most athletic and biggest dude on the court pretty much from the start of when he came into the NBA. Now, again, the conversation here for me, from the Sixers' perspective, is that the larger conversation is about LeBron James. That when you dig through the options that are available to spend all this valuable cap space that the Sixers did such a clear job on creating, there's not that high amount of appealing options. That we've had the Paul George conversations, the concerns about his playoff shortcomings. We've had the Jimmy Butler talks, the assets that it would take to even bring him in and then needing to pay him beyond that. Brandon Ingram, a good player, a younger player, but is he the difference between this team making a championship run? Personally, I don't think so. And then we bring up LeBron James. I would be hard-pressed to believe that you can find a better option than LeBron. And to bring up his stats specifically, we know what he's been throughout his career. Overall, 27.1 points per game, 7.8 rebounds, a great playmaker, a guy that has continued to develop year in and year out. One of the guys that will go down as one of the two greatest basketball players of all time. And I think the conversation get lost when it comes to LeBron. So often it's thrown, it's amazing what he's still doing at his age. Wipe that asterisk aside. It's amazing what he's doing, period. That to look at just this season specifically for LeBron, 25.7 points per game, 8.3 assists, 7.3 rebounds, shot a career-high 41% from beyond the three-point arc on 5.1 long-range attempts per game, and you saw that when it got to playoff time, he could still flip into that I got my fastball gear, that he could be LeBron James to the fullest extent. and it would take a load off him coming to a team like the Sixers. I believe when he went to Los Angeles, when he first joined the Lakers, the game plan was essentially for LeBron to pass the baton to Anthony Davis throughout their time there. That Anthony Davis would step into the forefront as the number one option on a night-to-night basis, and LeBron James could be more content just being the guy that is a true point guard, the guy that distributes offense, runs the team, and lets AD do the work. And while Anthony Davis, I think, has been better than the perception of him has been, he's not quite a guy that I think can handle that type of offensive load. That Anthony Davis, in my opinion, is far more impactful on the defensive side of the ball, a guy that deserves to be more up front in the Defensive Player of the Year conversations on a year-to-year basis than he is, and I think this year he had a strong argument, to be perfectly honest, although Rudy Gobert was excellent. I'm not taking anything away from him, but I don't think offensively that Anthony Davis is ready to be this engine of the offense in a way that I think LeBron could use playing along guys. Enter Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. And I also don't want to get lost here that there is a relationship between Tyrese Maxey and LeBron James. And to pull up this picture here, which I think is just completely poetic here, that you can see Tyrese Maxey doing the work, LeBron James looking on, and Ben Simmons lurking in the background. Now, let's not forget, as we have this Sixers conversation, that back in the original Start Hunting days, that there were those conversations about could LeBron James come to Philadelphia? Could he link up with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid and be that third piece here? Well, a couple years later, with an actual Clutch Sports and Chris Johnson hoops guard that is effective at playing basketball, Tyrese Maxey has kind of captured that momentum once again. So now you're sitting back as Daryl Morey, and I did want to read this report here talking about why the Sixers are likely to make a play, and this coming from Bleacher Report, which writes, 76ers president of basketball operations, Daryl Morey, is always hunting stars. He reportedly made trade inquiries for LeBron, Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker before the trade deadline last season. Keith Pompey of the Philadelphia Inquirer recently noted Paul George is expected to be the Sixers' top free agent target this summer if he opts out of his contract with the Los Angeles Clippers. The 76ers could have up to $56 million in cap space this summer. The draft comes before free agency, so we might get a strong indication about their interest in LeBron if they do take Bronny, likely in the second round if that happens. Now, where Bronny's kind of draft status is, to me, is completely unclear at this point. That, as I've mentioned throughout, I think the greater selling point is you're drafting him to bring his dad to your organization. But there are organizations where I think flat out that would not work. If the Detroit Pistons are to walk away with Bronny James, I find it hard to believe that LeBron's walking into Detroit and playing for that organization. But there are teams, and I do think the Sixers fit the bill of a team in which LeBron could look at as that's a better situation for me. I'm accomplishing all the goals that I do have with playing with my son, being higher on the ranking of maybe getting paid in the NBA world, where he does plenty besides that when we talk about his business ventures and sponsorships, all these other type of things, that maybe it is worth it to LeBron to just put that to the side and go do what is best to play on a contender. And I do believe that with the Sixers as they're currently constructed, and I get there's still a blank canvas for what their roster is going to look like, but when you have an MVP caliber player in Joel Embiid, you have an up-and-coming star in Tyrese Maxey, and then you add a guy who's still playing as a top 20 NBA player in LeBron James, that's a pretty damn good place to start. So if you can round out the roster with the adequate role players, you bring in Bronny James to just have in the organization and that being your selling point. And by the way, if money is still important to LeBron at this point, the Sixers can absolutely afford to pay him what he deserves and what he desires to this point in time. So I do think that there should be some hard conversations here. I don't know how you finesse the tampering allegations here, but I do think that there should be a way in which probably Tyrese Maxey is the guy to talk to LeBron James and say, so where is your head at? Because that is the biggest question here. If LeBron James is seeking greener pastures outside of Los Angeles, the Sixers should be rolling out the red carpet and proving why they can be that situation. If he is still dead set on staying in Los Angeles and this Bronny side of things is not in the conversation, he's not a guy that I'm overly excited about for his basketball future. Now, again, I do think people are more harsh for him than should be the case. And I think independently, if he had any other name but Bronny James, if he was not LeBron James' son, the right route for him is to go back for another year of college, get an adequate preseason. And there is a part of me that is concerned that the best path for Bronny is somewhat being overlooked and what is the best path for his dad. But there's just different standards in different situations when your father is LeBron James, and that's part of the reason why we're having this conversation at all. So we'll see how things happen from here, But I do think that there should be an effort to be made to see what is going on in between LeBron's ears. That where is his mind at as it pertains for what is the best case for his future? How does he want his overall legacy to end up? Is it staying in Los Angeles, continuing the ventures he's built out there, continuing to be somewhat of a dark horse threat, as even the Lakers, where I don't believe they're anywhere close to the teams like the Denver Nuggets, like the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Dallas Mavericks, the remaining teams in the Western Conference, I all think are a notable notch above the Lakers, but they have plenty of work to do this offseason as well. But I do want to hear from you guys. What do you think on the conversation? If LeBron James wants to play with Bronny James, would Philadelphia be a fine location for that to be occur? Would you guys be open to drafting Bronny James with the lure of bringing in a guy that is in the conversation for one of the greatest basketball players ever? I personally lean toward yes, that I absolutely would do that, and that would jump to my number one priority for this offseason if that is on the table. But again, the Sixers need to figure out if it is or not. So appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning in this video here. Make sure you are smashing that subscribe button to keep the Sixers Digest family growing. Drop a like on this video and your comments on your thoughts on LeBron specifically. I'll be back talking to you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.